Everyone, Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett here. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Mayor's Table. We'll be speaking with CEOs and executive directors for local nonprofits focused on providing services for those in need. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mayor's Table. I have some very special guests with me today, some very passionate and caring individuals who are working to make Farmington a better place within their organizations and abroad. So I want to get right into this morning and welcome our guests. We have Amanda Lobato is the Executive Director of People Assisting the Homeless, or PATH, as most of us know it as. We also have Executive Director of the San Juan United Way, Cathryn Abeyta.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. And then we have CEO, Rick Quevedo.
Good morning.
Desert View Family Counseling.
Good to see you.
We wanted to take some time in a couple of Mayor's Table episodes to get to know a little bit about the social service groups within the city of Farmington who are serving not just our community or the city, but really San Juan County, and I'm sure other places as well. I mean, you're coming in contact with a number of individuals who are from all over, northwest New Mexico, probably southern Colorado, Arizona. But we thought it would be important to talk about things that are happening now in the midst of, well, really this conversation is probably a little bit overdue, to be honest. COVID has certainly put some constraints and different things, challenges that your organizations are facing, and we wanted to kind of just talk about how you're dealing with that, talk about the services that you provide, how people can get a hold of you if they need help, if there is volunteer opportunities right now, how they can do that, and maybe when volunteer opportunities come back later on, what they can look forward to trying to do. Part of what I believe is a strength of our community is that we are a community that cares.
Yeah.
And the number of individuals who are serving in some form or fashion with mayor's volunteer groups, commissions, boards for your organizations, people serving daily bread, people serving in all these other places that they're able to volunteer their time. We need to highlight that. We need to celebrate that because we need to make that strength even stronger, especially with what's happening right now. We are aware, of course, that unemployment numbers have gone through the roof. Individuals who have had some sustainable form of income, a lot of challenges have been faced, and I'm sure your organizations are kind of helping coach them in some way, shape, or form to get where they need to be. So anyways, this is going to be a big conversation.
Yes.
We have a lot of players in the room. We are socially distanced. We appreciate Greg Allen, CEO of San Juan Safe Communities, for always setting this studio up for us in a safe manner. But let's kind of talk about what you guys do, okay? I'm going to start, Amanda, with you. Talk a little bit about PATH. What are the services PATH provides? How could somebody benefit from what you do?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Duckett. I'm very new to being the executive director. I started August 17th, but I was working in the community, like how you mentioned, in a service realm. I worked with Family Crisis Center Shelter Program, and then I worked with the Farmington Police Department. So coming into the agency at PATH that provides services for homeless population in our community has been like just the next segue for me. So what PATH does is provides temporary shelter. It's a program, so it's not like whenever we hear the word shelter in communities, sometimes we think, okay, anyone can just go there and stay the night and not have to participate in more than that. But our program is different. It's a program that causes people to take initiative on their own as well, and obtain income sources and become more self-efficient, sustainable, supportive of themselves. Some people that come into the program already do have an income, and some people don't. So if they don't have an income, then they job search and to obtain an income. While they're there, they're also receiving case management services. They're obtaining referrals for different agencies in the community. They're also, it's no alcohol and no drug use program. So some of them are just coming out of treatment at times and into the program, so they're continuing. We want them to continue aftercare. That's another part of them becoming more empowered and self-efficient. We have to complete pre-screens for anyone that wants to enter the shelter program. That's to determine if they're eligible based on HUD guidelines. And then it's also to determine if they're able to care for themselves, because the shelter program, we do not have like medical staff or nursing staff or therapists. So we need to know that it's a fit for them. If they're beyond that capacity, then that we're able to provide services for, then we can't accept them in the program. We also have transitional housing apartments where they can stay for up to 2 years. And it also just gives people the opportunity to get more grounded and more secure and continue to save. So another part of the program is they have to save their income, half of their income, and that's to help them to be able to get into housing. Anywhere we go, we have to pay a deposit for anyone that's going to, obtain housing. So that's part of that. And then to get the money built up so that they're not getting into housing and then all of a sudden they don't have, the ability to keep it. So we work closely with Housing Assistance, San Juan County Housing Partnership of San Juan County. So we work closely with them as well, and many people qualify for their assistance. Some don't, but many do. The transitional housing part, we do offer permanent housing support also in that program for some people that qualify. So it's all individually based on what each person is experiencing and what their situation is, whether they qualify for that.
And you also operate Daily Bread,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. So Daily Bread is where we serve lunch meals, and we feed the homeless population and also anyone that is going through a financial hardship. So there's some families that come through. There's some individuals that come through. They may not be homeless on the street homeless, but they may be just going through a financial hardship, and the meal is served every day from 11:30 to 12:30, and it's 405 South Barrend, and those are the only qualifications, just that they're going through a hardship, and they'll receive a free meal.
Now, there's been some challenges, I think, with Daily Bread during this
Yes.
time. I think we're doing bagged lunches.
We have to do, yes. So we haven't had been able to serve the hot meals and people coming into the building as it was in the past. So we've had to adjust, just like with the shelter program, we've had to adjust during COVID. So the meals are being served out the door, side door. So we are still serving, though. The numbers have reduced both in shelter and at the Daily Bread, but we want to let the community know it's available.
Great. Well, thank you, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
Good overview.
Thank you.
Cathryn, I want to get to you, but first I'm going to get to Rick,
Yes.
because San Juan United Way kind of has a different scope. I mean, so I'm going to let Rick talk a little bit about Desert View Family Counseling.
Okay.
Tell us what your organization does, and I think you serve a couple different communities.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So basically, we're outpatient mental health. We're a trauma center. We're coming up on 17 years, which is crazy. Initially we've always did individual and family counseling. As we know, sometimes when families come to us, they don't need counseling right away. And so we're fortunate to have our partner agencies through United Way, and we can refer to any of the agencies if they're needing something else. The other things that we've found through the years is there's always more opportunity to work with these families in a different way. And so it's been about 5 years now that we're doing in-home services. And so a lot of those referrals come from protective services and CYFD. These families are at risk of losing their kids, and we work with them 120 days to help them keep their kids and make sure that those kind of concerns go away. And so we've expanded. We're in San Juan, but we're also in McKinley County as well. And we have a youth care coordination program called Wraparound, and we work with young people 15 to 25. And one of my favorite programs, these kids, they don't know what their vision is for life. And so we help them through their barriers and just kind of transition into adulthood and, whatever comes up for them. And we also work with their families as well. We have a truancy program that started out pretty small. We actually aimed toward like the freshmen in the beginning, but it exploded, and we're serving all districts down to second graders, which is kind of crazy to think about. Little kids that won't get up and go to school. Lots of reasoning there. Sometimes it's at home, but we work with these kids also in the schools and at the home. It's changed a lot through COVID, how we work with families. And then the last program that we've added is a supervised visitation program. And those are for families that had their kids removed, they're going through reunification, and they're trying to get back with them.
If somebody was looking for assistance, you're dealing with mental health issues. If somebody was looking for help, is there a qualification that they would need to go through in order to receive care through your facility? Or is there a cost associated with it?
So we do take insurance and Medicaid, but we also have funds to help families that don't have those. And so basically, the client just has to have a presenting need to get services.
Sure.
And, we've got a variety of different funding sources that we're able to take care of those families.
Well, that's a great segue, talking about funding.
Yeah.
We talk about San Juan United Way and kind of the mission that you provide here within the San Juan County area. Cathryn, tell us a little bit about that mission and the different agencies that you serve, and let's talk a little bit about funding and how your operations can afford to provide the services you have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor, for letting us come on and talk about these services and to give me the opportunity to talk about how we try really hard to fund them. So what we do at United Way is we don't, what makes us different from other nonprofits like the ones here today, we don't provide any of the direct service. We work behind the curtain and we raise the money. So there's a lot that goes into funding a nonprofit organization, especially these essential services that are providing mental health, providing shelter, food. There's so many different sources for funding that come from outside of the community through federal or state grants, and there's just so many different ways that those funds make their way to the community and the agencies. However, those are less personalized funds. They're top-down allocated funds, to send out this service to this community. But one of the things that's so different about United Way funding is all of the funding that we allocate is privately raised here in our community in San Juan County. And then it's allocated out to agencies that make requests for that funding, so we know exactly what the funding is going towards. And it's funding things that those other grants can't fund, whether it's just because the red tape says you can only purchase X, Y, and Z with these funds, or oftentimes there's unique needs or things that come up in delivering a service that you realize you need to be able to do to really help your client. And there's not funding available for that. So that's where these agencies can come to our local United Way and make their pitch and say, here's what we're doing in the community. This is the incredible community building work we're doing, but we need some extra help. It could be a few $1,000s or it could be $100,000. And that's something that we get to look at, and then we get to take that out to the community and share that message and share the work of those agencies with individual community members and businesses all around the county to donate. And the way that we do that is we operate about 90% of what we raise comes from payroll deductions, which is a really cool way of donating because you sign up once a year through your employer and you pick however much you'd like to get taken out of your check. It can be $1, $20, $50, $100, whatever you'd like, and it will just get pulled out of it'll get pulled out of your check. So you don't ever have to make that payment, and so it budgets your gift over the entire year. But what that also does is we find that people give much more generously when they're able to do it this way. And the average gift from an individual is between $5 and $10 a paycheck. And we raise so much money from community members, and many businesses in the community will follow their employees' lead, and they'll double their donation. The companies will pitch in and say, what's important to my employees? I want to support that too. And that's a way they support their employees. And so last year, before the pandemic, we raised just over $1 million in San Juan County from people who want to give back to local nonprofits. And the way that works is at the end of the year, we go into businesses and ask people to pledge for their payroll deduction for the next year. So that's what we're doing right now. A lot of workplaces are doing this virtually, and so we're sending videos and information about the agencies that we fund and just agencies out there that people could choose to fund through their payroll deduction. It's a really awesome way to give back, and there's so many benefits to doing that. One of the biggest benefits is that there's absolutely no risk in doing it. It's free to the donor, it's free to the companies for us to come in. We're one of the few communities that get to say that. It does cost money to do this work. This is my job, and we have light at our office. We have air conditioner, heater going on. We have papers to print, and so we have just this incredible caring community, and we've got about 24 community members and businesses that underwrite our annual costs every year so that we can go out and fundraise. And it costs less than $250,000 for us to do our work all year round, and we can go out with that and we can quadruple the money. We can go out and raise $1 million, and that gets to all go back to the agencies. And so when you donate, not a penny is taken out. There's no fees. There's no catch. You can really donate $1, and we will send a check for $1. Where it's really about connecting people to a cause or agency that's important to them, because we really believe that if we can get everyone to connect in some way with one agency in our community, we'll be fine. Like, we will pull through this stronger than ever. And we're on our way. So.
I think it's been interesting when, March, April, May, we recognized at that time that there was going to be some long-term impact here, across the globe as far as the economic and physical health of these communities. And we put together a plan to allow for individuals to have an easy, accessible phone line number. And I know the San Juan United Way, this is your phone number anyway, all the time.
Yes.
Right. So is it the helpline? What do you call it?
Yeah. So in addition to our fundraising, we have we call it our direct service. The one service we provide is we offer a helpline to the community, and you can call it by dialing 211. And
if you have a local carrier, 211
yes,
works.
But the other thing is, if you were in Albuquerque, you could dial 211, and you will get Albuquerque's helpline. Anywhere in the country,
So
you should get
nationwide.
you should get
Okay.
the local helpline. Most helplines are operated by a United Way, but some aren't. But the point is still the same. The whole idea is to be able to call a live person in your community who can hear what your challenge is right now and refer you to the right agency. That is accessing services is a real big challenge. I think everywhere, but we have a lot of unique challenges in our community, I think, that contribute to that, where it makes it hard for a client to get to the service that they need, or
Right.
they might not even understand where they should go. So starting with helpline is, I think, a really awesome way to get to the right place faster, and help people quicker. So.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about that as it refers to the other agencies that are represented here today. Then there's also the Want to Helpline
Yes.
number, which I think was a combination of San Juan College, San Juan United Way, City of Farmington, and that was for individuals who wanted to volunteer.
Yes.
Can you give any update on how that has gone in the midst of some kind of restrictive,
Yeah.
environment to actually do volunteer work?
Yeah, it is really fluctuated a lot during this time. There's just been lots of new orders that have changed things in the dynamics, both at the agency that needs volunteers and then also at home and considering whether or not you'll volunteer. But at first, getting those groups together was I think such a good opportunity for our community to create this foundation of unity before things got bad. I mean, we met early March, and to get this Want to Help line together because everyone in these agencies knew that there was people who wanted to reach out. There were so many people who wanted to help. They see the severity of what's going on, and they realize that the most vulnerable people are going to need more help than ever, and those who help those people are going to need more help than ever because this is something that nobody planned for, and we knew that there would be so much changing. And so that was, I think just great in the establishment of that and the whole point of it. But then as it went on, there was just less in-person opportunities to volunteer. But we've been able to connect people with some cleverly distanced volunteer opportunities, and then sometimes there's just new things that pop up that wasn't a volunteer opportunity a month ago, and it is now. One of those examples are food distribution. So food distribution used to be something that was a pretty routine volunteer opportunity, and they had lots of volunteers for it. Now, food distribution they pop up all of the time, and those can be socially distanced, and they need help. So those are opportunities to help, but it's been a challenge for the agencies to use people as volunteers, because right now people are home more than often. They want to help more than on a regular day maybe because they're noticing what's going on. But it's a lot more challenging to actually use volunteers right now.
Which is a bummer, honestly. In a moment where a lot of people are in need, having that army of helpers out there that are ready to go, but they're limited, I think is very difficult.
Yes.
Speaking about just the 211 is the number for the San Juan County hotline.
Yes.
Are both of your organizations referred from that, Rick?
Yes.
There are,
Abeyta?
yes.
Okay.
There are referrals that come from
Quite a bit.
United Way.
How many calls do you think you're getting a day? In maybe a week or?
It ranges quite a bit. It also ranges depending on what time of the month it is too, we notice. The beginning of the month, we get a lot of calls. The beginning of the month also is typically when the programs we would refer to have funding, but also this is this isn't a typical time, so it's hard to predict that. We're getting, I would say about 10 calls a day. That's more than typical. It seems like it's not a lot, but it's a lot. It's a lot to help manage this person, because we really want to give a warm handoff. We don't want to just say, we're not a phone book. I mean, people could Google people's numbers, but they need to understand where they need to go. And so it's more calls, but it's a lot of basic needs of calls.
Sure.
So
it would take a lot of time to first you got to analyze the situation. What exactly is a person needing? How do we get them to those resources? What do you need to bring with you when you get there? Because if there's pre-screening involved, you're going to make sure you got to have all these things put together. And so it is, you're taking them by the hand and trying to make sure that, so you got to have a good relationship then, kind of is this network of nonprofits working together. Is there like a coffee group that you all are a part of when you're talking about?
Kind of.
Something like that.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on that, being pretty new to, like I said, being executive director,
Sure.
but yet being in the community for a long time. I totally understand and recognize what you're saying, that it takes the community. We have to work together. We have to know each other and what our services are. Working with the police department, we had to refer people and know what was available. I've worked with Cathryn before. She's been a member of the community, serving the community in different ways. I've known Rick Quevedo for a while. So there is like a group of of people that are like, I guess, like the leaders, and I'm very honored to be a part of that.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about funding. You talked about opportunities that people can, through their paychecks, that program. They can also contact you directly and set up different donations.
Yep, online.
There are events that are taking place across the city that help support your groups. The Chocolate Affair is one that the Path has done for a very long time. We have done the 5K.
The Strides Against Suicide.
Strides Against Suicide. That wasn't able to take place this year. The Chocolate Affair did it end
Had
up?
to be modified.
It had to be
yes.
modified, right?
We had to modify it, so funds were not the same this year. And it was more of a thank you. So when I came on, that was already in the making, and the plans were happening with Jonah Sharp's been the executive director of PATH for over 12 years, and she has laid such an amazing foundation for me, and she's still helping through this first year. She's going to help me with the transition. She's coming in like as a consultant on a regular basis. And so just so that the community also knows, even though I'm new to this position, the past executive director is not just leaving,
Right.
She's helping, still continuing to help and support people assisting the homeless and teaching me.
And you have a strong board.
Yes.
A lot of really good
Yes.
local individuals that are serving on there and advocating for PATH. And the Chocolate Affair had to be modified a little bit, so obviously you've lost some funding in that regard. And then for the Strides Against Suicide,
Yeah, we debated whether we should do a virtual run, which is what a lot of people are doing right now. We were fortunate to have so many regulars the last 5 years that those donations continue to come in this year. But suicide is such an important topic, especially in these times. And so we're partnering with Cottonwood Clinical Services, Juvenile Probation, Greg Allen with San Juan Safe Communities Initiative, and we're going to do like a round table, and we're going to do several episodes and just kind of discuss, what's going on and how suicide is still very much a problem in our area. We're going to interview some survivors and some family members and just kind of keep that conversation going for folks that this is really important to throughout the year.
well, I think, Rick, it's, for people who are watching this right now, everybody's dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of new challenges.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very unique, no matter what industry you're working in, your life has been changed in some way. And so there is a need for folks to know that there are people out there who are here for them.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
trained professionals. They're here to listen. They're here to coach. They're here to help people make it through this. How can somebody get a hold of in regards to if I'm feeling this feeling this wave of despair or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be? Where do they need to contact? Obviously, they could call 211, and would that get them to?
Yes, our 211 right now is an answering machine, and then a human will call you back that
Okay.
day. We set it up that way so that we can do a little research ahead of time.
So I'm glad you said that. So
Yeah.
then what's the hotline?
So we've got a number of different ways that you can get a hold of us. 326-7878 is our main line. We have a crisis number, 947-4471. We have a Facebook page, and we have a website, www.mydesertview.org. And even on the website, you can message in, and we'll respond to you right away. Same with our messenger for Facebook.
And just in regards to suicide, we're going to get through this. And I think that's the message that people need to understand. We have built and I'll use the word safety net here in this community to make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind who might be in that desperate situation. I appreciate the work that you do, that you all do in regards to this. And I think we just got to keep our heads up and know that the support is there. You just have to ask. And a lot of times you're afraid to ask. You're afraid to, I'm a very prideful person. Dropping down that pride, being able to say, okay, I got to get help. It can be a tough thing. So, but that's what we're here for.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, before COVID, of course we had no-shows and cancellations, and we don't have those no more. People want to keep their appointments. They want to talk about what's going on in their lives and how things have changed and the isolation and what their children are dealing with now. So, great attendance now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Virtually. We might keep some of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the virtual component's got to be unique too in this. We're able to have these meetings I mean, are you finding that being the case, that you're doing a lot more Zoom with
A lot
individuals?
more Zoom, yes, yeah. We offer telemed. We are taking a small percentage of clients daily, face-to-face. They go through health screening, temperature check, all that stuff. But most of them, we're doing virtually, and it's working. So,
And I think it probably helps for some people that maybe didn't have transportation to make it to appointments.
why I said I
because
think
that's
we're
a
gonna
big
keep some of it.
obstacle and
Yeah.
barrier our
Mhm.
community has, is the transportation for people.
yeah.
Like, we have the Red Apple, we do, but
Mhm.
sometimes the schedule doesn't fit to what the people's needs are.
Yeah.
So they do learn to work through that, but can be difficult, so.
Does Dial-A-Ride work for some of those situations if people needed to ride somewhere?
Sure.
Um,
A lot of the Medicaid providers have transportation services now. And, the other thing about folks who are depressed, some days you don't want to get out of bed,
They-
right?
yeah,
You don't want to leave
so
your
now
house.
they can
and
just
so now
call.
they can just call in,
Yeah.
It's good.
What, in your minds, and I'll ask this for each of you, within your organizations, what is maybe the most pressing issue facing our community? And COVID obviously being a component of that, but on a broader scale of how, are there things that we should be focusing on more to ensure that the lives of individuals who are struggling and need assistance, they're improved? So, I don't put anybody on the spot, so we'll start with Amanda. Is there things within?
I think I sat in the.
You sat right in the
I
direct
sat in
view
the
here.
hot seat.
Good spot.
I'm just kidding.
Is there things happening at PATH and what you're seeing right now where you're like, look, there's a true gap here that needs to be addressed, or there's more funding needed behind this push? What are you seeing?
Well, and I'm not only going to answer that perspective from being with PATH, because I've only been here a short time, so my perspective is going to come from just working in the community. But the homeless situation is a factor that having to help people that have either mental health that's beyond our capability. I've seen it with law enforcement, like whenever they're going on calls, and the obstacles and barriers that they have as well. The department has tried to figure out different ways to work with people that have mental health conditions, trying to partner with other agencies. So the housing piece of them as well is also an obstacle. So, and then people with substance abuse, housing them, like we have the sobering center for like overnight staying. And we have TOTA behavioral health. We have the treatment programs, but then kind of like where do they go after that?
Right.
Because they're not, self-sufficient to be able to get into their own housing. So I think that's something that I've seen for a long time as a gap, and we do the best we can as everyone in the community that's working through those things. We do the best that we can to help people through that, but it is a gap.
How does the winter roof shelter work into that scenario? I mean,
And I can't speak too much about the
Okay.
roof shelter because of not, just not knowing yet at this point. It's something I will get into, I'm sure.
that shelter was moved. It was downtown. We moved it now. It's a part of the sobering center for individuals who, need a place. In the cold winter months, we don't want them on the streets freezing.
Mm-hmm.
We want to provide that warm place, and that's kind of what it's become now.
And we're going to try to do, that kind of reminds me about the Daily Bread, we're going to try to be able to reopen with the social distancing and things for a hot meal now that it's getting colder.
Excellent.
We're going to try to do that. But again, we have to, be mindful and take precautions with COVID
Sure.
in the population. So we have staffed now. It usually has 3 people. We have 4 now to try and transition through that. That's something else that happened. I don't know if you experienced it, or Cathryn, but staff during this time as well has
been very
some people.
challenging.
Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
challenge. So once I came on, that was one of the things I wanted to try and address, is getting enough staff to support staff, because the executive director and assistant director were having to fill in a whole lot of other things and doing things that the support staff was doing because of staff shortage. So some people just were concerned about working through it with the population, and so they left. Or whenever we would, they would have, say we're hiring or ask for applicants, we were having a hard time getting applicants. So
I think we're seeing that everywhere. I was in a restaurant the other day and was talking to the owner, and they were mentioning the fact that we don't have enough people because people are at home and they're getting a paycheck through the unemployment agencies, and so they're like, well, you know what, it's safer here. You know, that's what we're being told, so we should probably do that. But it does impact that workforce that we need for all these different agencies, for sure.
yes, because those things don't change. They continue. Those needs continue.
Good input. Rick, what do you see as kind of from your point of view, and you know, the gap that needs to be filled, or you know, an emerging issue that we all need to be aware of?
You know, I think initially it's all the same for us, right? Like our clients and our employees and how we're going to get through that, and that's been manageable now. And so I think for myself, what it comes down to is our young people. So we were very involved in the schools. We were contracted in some of the schools to actually do therapy in the schools. A lot of the dormitory schools, we can't do that now. And we're also not seeing kids 11 and under at our clinic right now. We're just not. And so we're, you know, trying to do some of those virtual, but it's not working, and it's hard to connect, you know, to somebody through a monitor. And I just keep hearing feedback that, you know, our young kids need to get into, and so that's a challenge that we got to figure out. You know, because we let one person in at a time, just the client. And so, you know, when we think about a little kid and, you know, they need services too, we got to figure that out. So that's one of my biggest concerns.
There's a lot of unique components to working with that age group that right now would make it very difficult to do.
Yeah. Especially when a lot of our therapists are play therapists and there's toys everywhere, and, you know. So how do you get them in there and say, well, wait, you can't do what you do, so, as a young person,
I will say this last week, when I left my home, there were kids playing on a playground at an elementary school, and that was like, I mean, it was like just warmed my heart to see them out there playing, because that facility has been shut down for, you know, since March. There's been no kids playing on this playground since March. And this playground services, you know, a huge, you know, number of people, a huge population that surround that school. And it was heartwarming to see that. And kids, that's a component that I think has been a huge challenge for our young people. And so hopefully getting back some of that in their lives, that socialization. Kids need their peers. You know, that's a big part of dealing with stress, and dealing with stress that may be happening in your home. It's been
tough on us adults, so can you imagine these
that's right.
little kids that just don't get it?
I've put on 15 pounds, there's no doubt.
They call that the COVID-15, you know. I'm on COVID-25.
I'm struggling here, man. So I can't imagine, you know, and then they're dealing with the stress that mom and dad are dealing with on top of, you know, everything else going on. And
that comes back to the staff part. Many people had to leave because of caring for the children.
They're schooling at home.
And so that's part of, they're not employed right now. That's a barrier, a hardship they're having, which then leads to, we've had families in the homeless shelter, in our shelter. And it's a barrier when they're having to try and do school, online school with their children, and seek an income. It's difficult.
This is an odd barrier for us, but, you know, we live in a state that's been, you know, very proactive about everything that's going on. And so we've received some COVID funds for both of our county programs. Again, a challenge to use, right? You know, especially when we're talking about in-home services and youth engagement, and we can't have that, you know, face-to-face. And so it's like, how are we supposed to draw these down? You know?
How are you going to spend the money on the programs that are shut down right now?
Exactly.
Which is interesting. In the CARES Act funding, have you all received some form of the CARES Act?
Yes.
Okay, because I mean, it deals directly with these local nonprofits and their missions. So
to kind of speak a little bit on what Cathryn mentioned about some funds are specific. So I'm learning about this as well. So there's unrestricted funds, which can be used for anything, and then there's restricted funds, which have to be specifically used for what that grant specifies or what was proposed. So the United Way, if people did give through that program, they can decide and say, you know, I want it to go to this agency in our community. It's I think the best way to support San Juan County, and just say, you know, I want the money to go to PATH, I want the money to go to Desert View, I want the money to go to SAS, whatever it is, and then it's not as designated. It can be used for those things like she mentioned, that the federal grants or the state grants don't, or the city grants don't specify.
Yeah.
I want to speak real quick to how important local funds are through United Way. So they funded our truancy program, which was new. Nobody was doing it. 5 years later, through their support and just foundation grants supporting it, local funds supporting it, we were actually recognized in Santa Fe this last year at the legislative session. We got funds for it. You know, it's a solid program now, and so that all started with just local funds. So thank you, United Way.
There's just so much magic in
Yeah.
helping our own community, and that's really that's what it's about. And
Right.
it's people's pocket change added up every single paycheck over a year. You don't miss it because you don't
Yeah.
even see it.
But
and
it's
it actually makes impacts, huge impacts. And I mean, just it's so much more valuable almost, because you can then have this unrestricted fund to fill the gaps throughout your programs to make them work their very best, and that means that people seeking those services are getting higher quality service, and that helps them. It ends up costing less to help them later. So
And for the agency, it can be a stepping stone to sustainability,
Yep.
a different kind of sustainability.
It's very unique.
Yes.
And many funds don't, I'm learning, don't really talk about the admin side or the staff or paying the staff.
Sure.
It takes us all to do what we
Yeah.
do. And yes, it's a nonprofit, but you know, everyone that's working there is valuable, and the staff are valuable, and we want to be able to pay them in the manner that they, you know, are serving. So
Yeah,
That's
we
another thing.
we want nonprofits to be able to employ people to take care of their families.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well, and these people are trained in
Yep.
what they're doing. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
longer that they're in that job, they can serve people even better. And so you want to make sure you're providing them a wage that gives them the foundation to grow from. But in your environment, where funding can kind of go like this, because if it's based upon donations or available funds through the state, or COVID happens, and then everybody else is kind of scrambling. What's mine? I got to take care of my own. It's hard for me to give right now. That makes it very hard for that kind of consistency over a long period of time. But I recognize here, sitting with you today, in regards to your organizations, do you feel like you're in sound financial standing right now and still able to provide that mission successfully, even in the midst of what is happening right now? And directly speaking, the San Juan United Way is kind of the catch-all and then able to give to others. But if people want to reach out to you for donations, I'd like to know how they can do that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rick.
So, for us, they can go to our website. We got a PayPal there. As far as our sustainability goes, or where we're sitting financially, fortunately, we're in a good place to continue to, serve the families. And it's been a lesson for me through COVID. I think you don't need what you don't need, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly, the budget's changed, and just, we're just doing business different now. And we can see that in our funds too.
Amanda?
I would agree. I'm pretty new on as far as seeing the budget and learning about everything, but to my understanding, PATH has been sustainable, and it's partially because of, like how Rick was saying, individually we think about our individual budgets, and that we had to change and make some changes. So as an agency, it's the same.
Do the same thing.
We had to make some changes. The city has had to make
Sure.
changes.
Yeah.
We've all had to adjust in order to get through this time. So there's been adjustments made. Yes, there are funds, and we are sustainable. It also comes from the history of the past executive director trying to ensure that there's backup funds for times that may get hard.
Right.
You know, so it's same thing on a personal level. And that's what, you know, the agency tries to pass on to the residents, you know. That's why we have the savings program, the residential savings program. That's why it's there.
Smart financial planning.
Yeah.
We have
Yep,
to,
gotta grow.
and it's so that we can stay housed and stay afloat in the agencies, so that the agencies can stay, you know, going. And Cathryn said, I wrote it down, you said, we are on our way, when you were talking about the foundation and the funds, we're on our way. And United Way, just the name, like, that's how we have to do it. We have to be united.
Yes.
As a community, as a nation, we have to be united to be on our way to better. It has to happen.
No, great message.
We've been saying a lot in the office, just united we will, and then fill in the blank. Some days it's like rebuild, some days
Yeah.
it's rise, some days it's reimagine, whatever it is, like, but together we will, whatever it is. And we know we're not out of this yet, and we know that whenever that starts looking like something we can recognize, there's still going to be a lot for us agencies to be working on, because
Sure.
there are a lot of vulnerable people who are it's just going to continue getting harder for them, and we need to still be there as things shift. And I think as agencies need to be more united together in adapting, helping each other, being partners. Like, what do you need? Oh, you have clients who now have this need, I could help them with this, and partnering and being more strategic. And that's, I think, to me, that's like part of the Kool-Aid of United Way. It's so cool that together all these agencies create a stronger network than they would be just by being agencies in a community. Now they have incentive to work together and be more creative and more resilient, and they get to learn from each other more. And we just want to keep creating those partnerships. And the more involvement we have from community members, the more partnerships we can create. And really, when this even started, we started a COVID fund, and we were so worried that with people being laid off or not knowing when people were going to return to work, like I said earlier, about 90% of our donations are derived from payroll deductions, whether that's a match that ends up coming because a payroll deduction started. We were panicked, and so we've been paying attention closely, and so far so good. Just from our side of things, our donors are still working. They're still donating.
That's great.
But we started this COVID fund as an additional way to help supplement some of the immediate needs going on with agencies. And that's been a really cool, I think, solution and way to adapt to the changes of the past 200 and some odd days. And we've done several rounds of that funding, and we'll continue doing that until it's not a need anymore. And that's something where our partner agencies can apply for, and other nonprofits in San Juan County. If you're doing something to help during this time and you need a partner, like, we want to know about it. We want to know what it is you're doing and how you could do it better with a little bit of help.
Sure.
So,
I think I forgot to mention
Sure.
how to share funds with us. I forgot to share our number and that information.
Please do.
So donations can be made on our website. We have a website. Donations can be made in that manner. They can be made by sending a check to our address. They can be made in person. Some people do just want to do that. If they come by our agency, our doors are locked, so people can't come in, and we can't do so many tours. We haven't done tours in a while for people to see what they're donating and funding, but we hope to be able to do those, and we're doing virtual, like Cathryn said. We're going to be setting up something virtual so that people can see what they're donating to help. And then we do have, PATH has been the recipient of the annual Mayor's Ball, so we have these next 3 years where PATH will be the recipient of the proceeds from the Mayor's Ball, which I think is, again, I'm learning something new about our community. San Juan County is so supportive of one another. The Mayor's Ball is a beautiful thing, like, to be able to support a nonprofit and and all of those proceeds go to, that agency for the 3 years that it does. So I learned it was Boys and Girls Club, and then it was, prior to that, Sexual Assault Services, and do you
Big
guys
Brothers,
know?
Big
Big Brothers,
Sisters.
Big Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a way to give a boost to an agency in our community. So we're hopefully going to have that March 6th.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. We're planning as though, because that's what, we would like to do. We're hopeful. So we're planning as though it will be March 6th. We have a backup date of June 19th. And we are going to be reaching out to members in the community. We already did do like a reach out to ask about if they would be interested in supporting it this year.
Sure.
And members did still want to support through the
table.
sponsorship through the Mayor's Ball.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to working with people in that.
No, it's a great event and a great opportunity, and we're going to kind of bring this to a close. And so obviously we could probably sit here another hour and talk about this, but
Right.
I hope people have found, some important information in here, valuable information. The first step in anything in dealing with any of your organizations is communication. And people who have a need have to step out, or an advocate for them has to step out and say, we need to get you help. And I think that's what makes your engine start working, and that's what you're there to do, is provide that help. So I just encourage, those who are watching this, if you know somebody who is in need, or you may be in need, please reach out. I'll just use the 211 number here as kind of the catch-all to whatever that need may be. There's an organization and a group of people here in our community that are ready and willing to help. So you mentioned something earlier, I'm going to end on this. We have to think with the end in mind. We can't get bogged down all the time in the immediate things that are around us, because it can be kind of scary. We've all been dealing with things that are new, and you have to kind of rise your thinking above that to think, okay, but how do I get to that point? How can I make it through this together with friends, family, organizations like this, to ensure that we come out on the other side better? I think we're going to learn a lot about each other during this time. We already have. We're going to continue to do that, but we have to think with the end in mind. So keep your heads up. Thank you for what you all do. Is there any closing statements any of you would like to make before we wrap up the show today?
I guess I would just like to tell people, if they want to have their United Way campaign, they can reach out to us through our website, which is sjunitedway.org, and we can start a virtual campaign to let employees give back to any of these agencies. Through that campaign, you can designate to any local 501c3, and we send them the checks.
That's awesome. Good.
Yeah.
Amanda, Rick?
Yeah, just to say thank you for past support to our community for PATH, and for any future support that's going to be, coming. And our phone number is the 327-3104. That's the number to reach for pre-screens. We're doing pre-screens over the phone. Some people don't have a phone, and we're still doing walk-ins, so they can come to the agency as well. It's at 520 Hydro Plant Road. We just do it in a COVID-safe manner, that we do our pre-screens in person there. And thank you. Oh, we have our website. You can look us up on our website. And just remember, we're in transition, so keep that in mind. And thank you for your past support and future support.
Yeah. Just want to thank you, Mayor, for always keeping us all connected. I think that's so important, especially at a time like this, when we talk about communication and relying on each other and having a community know, that they're supported. For Desert View, anyone who's struggling with any kind of depression or blues, or just this is life-changing, please reach out. Even if you're unsure about, I think about folks that have been unsure about trying counseling. What a great time to try it virtually, right?
Right.
So kind of takes the pressure off a little
You
bit.
can be at home.
So,
Yeah. And that's different. You don't have to
Absolutely.
go somewhere. You're not worried if somebody's going to see you go somewhere. You
Yeah.
don't have that
Very private.
stigma kind of built around
Yeah.
reaching out for help. And
Yeah.
I've known individuals throughout this time that have taken that step, and they've benefited from that. And again, just appreciate the services that are available to us
Yeah.
to support each other.
Yeah, and our Facebook Messenger is very interactive, as well as our website, so we can communicate on that, and you'll get an instant response. So, yeah.
Good to know. Well, thank you all for joining us here, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Mayor's Table. We hope you take away something from this, but again, let's think with the end in mind. Let's think, how can we serve one another in this time of need? You are passionate about something, you care about something. There's an organization here that you can support, either with your time or money or advocacy. So make sure you're looking out for those things. But keep your head up, keep moving forward, and we'll see you here next time on the Mayor's Table.